What food did you think you hated, but just never had cooked right? Asparagus. Like most of the other comments, my parents overcooked it. They would steam them until they were mushy, and added no extra flavor in any way. My first job was for a catering company, and once I had it prepared correctly, I changed my mind completely. My wife hated asparagus and would never try it when I made it. Threw it on the grill one day with some olive oil and parmesan, and suddenly it smelled too good for her to turn down. Not that it was cooked wrong, but the first time I ate edamame, I ate the whole thing without peeling it. I was so confused how it was even considered food. Baked French fries. My mom liked them really soft, so she barely cooked them. When I tried making them on my own with an appropriate temperature for an appropriate length of time, they're actually pretty good. This but with chicken nuggets or fish sticks. I mean, it wasn't exactly quality food, and I still don't like fish, but there could have been at least some effort at making an enjoyable meal with an extra 5 minutes of oven time and a little thought. Brussels sprouts. My parents and grandparents always cook the crap out of them. If you roast them in the oven with butter and breadcrumbs or stir fry them in butter, they are so much better. Chicken. I thought chicken was super dry and tasteless when not deep fried. Turns out my dad just feels safe when food is overcooked. This is pretty common with chicken. People don't have the confidence to take it just past 165. Many restaurants take chicken off the heat at 160 and let carryover cooking finish it. That's how you get really tender and moist chicken breasts. Spinach. My parents used to serve it just heated up. It was pretty much identical to the spinach Wymosh Popeye would eat in this cartoon. I had gag reflex every time I took a piece. It was a horrible experience overall, but it turned out it's pretty good when it's fresh or as an ingredient in pasta, for example. Sauteed spinach with salt and pepper is so good. Ribs. As a child, my father would buy a rack of spare ribs, cut them into individual bones, and char them over an open flame. They were terrible. I mean freaking inedible. Years later I had slow smoked ribs at a party and it was mildly life changing. Now ribs are one of my favorite foods, and my wife just bought me a $700 smoker for my birthday. That's a crime against ribs, my god. Reading through these comments, I'm reminded of how much American basic cooking knowledge was obliterated by the Great Depression and World War II. My grandparents and their peers entered adulthood when you were supposed to cook things thoroughly because the meat might be less than ideal. Canned vegetables were a hedge against shortages, and microwaves were a proud sign of middle-class success. My parents and their peers' generation, boomers, were then taught nothing about cooking. My wife grew up in a family with a strong uninterrupted cooking tradition though. When our parents met, my mom said to her, "Mom, you guys cook so much. It must be a challenge with my son being such a picky eater." And my wife's mom responded, "Picky eater? Yeah, he picks it up and eats it. For being such a great cook, your meal burned your mom without looking twice." Along the same lines, my grandmother regularly made pot roast. Didn't hate it, but I had no idea it wasn't supposed to be dry and needing ketchup until she passed away in 1986 and my mom started making it. Steak. My parents would never season meat and then cook the crap out of everything. I ended up being a vegetarian from the time I was 14 to 19 because I just thought I didn't like meat. Turns out I really like meat. My parents just can't cook. Tofu. Honestly, I had only really had it in hot pots and soups, and the few times I had it in a dish besides that it was wet, spongy and just gross. My wife introduced me to extra firm tofu and we press the liquid out before cooking it and it is just delicious if prepped properly. Oh boy. Broccoli, cauliflower, fish, freshly baked bread, curries, milk, homemade capezzino. The list goes on and on. Once you start to cook it right, oh my god. Broccoli went from yucky to need. Yesterday only, I boiled my cauliflower till tender, then pureed them, and mixed them. Hear me out. Mixed them into white sauce pasta. Oh my lord. I didn't even need cheese. It was so creamy, yum, and nutritious too. Mayo. This reminds me of a guy I knew. White boy from country town, basically never saw ethnic food until he had Thai food. He ate a chicken curry like 6 meals in a row. I'm gonna have to go with grits. Went to a Cracker Barrel once with my parents and the default side with any of the breakfasts is a bowl of grits. I push them to the side and this southern belle of a waitress asks what I was doing. I kindly explain that grits are just not my thing. She then proceeds to work some kinda magic involving a little sugar, some butter, half and half, I think. Honestly, she handed it back to me and I tried them. They were amazing. I've since tried to replicate grits in other Cracker Barrels to no avail. Butter and cheese in grits is amazing. Steak. My mom cremated every piece of meat she got her hands on. Same with roast dinners on a Sunday. Roast beef that's been roasting for hours and is so dry and chewy, and then bitter bisto gravy that's been on the hob for an hour. I learned to be a chef in 2010 and my god, my eyes were opened. Eggplant. My mom's never been a great cook even though she tried, and I kind of learned to cook on my own after I left home roughly 10 years ago. It's not that the food she cooked tasted bad, it's that her repertoire was extremely limited and each food kind of only got one way to be cooked. I thought I hated vegetables for the most part growing up, but when I started bothering to learn to cook and checking recipes and videos, vegetables kind of looked nice in some dishes. So I tried adding some to meat dishes, and I ended up learning some vegetable-centric recipes. Eggplant parmesan and fried eggplant with honey are two of my currently favorite dishes. Zucchini. This is how my mom would prepare it. Take one zucchini, slice it paper thin, coat with Kraft Parmesan cheese dust, and saute in margarine until nice and slimy. Later a friend of mine served me roasted zucchini and discovered that I liked it. Slice in half lengthwise, scoop out most of the flesh, chop fine, mix in parmesan, breadcrumbs, melted butter, pine nuts, salt and pepper. Bake for half an hour or so until both soft and crispy. Yum. So this is timely, but I always hated turkey for Thanksgiving. Seems like all my family overcooked the crap out of the bird. My mom would wait until the little pop-up thing would pop up, turn off the oven, leave the turkey in the oven, make all the sides. When the sides were done, she'd pull the turkey straight out of the oven and carve it. No rest. I swear to god you could have used it to pull oil out of garage floors. Somewhere along the way I had a properly juicy piece of turkey and discovered what I had been missing. Now I insist on cooking the bird and use an overnight brine and meat thermometer and resting period. I hated turkey for this exact reason, until I moved in with my fiancé. She can cook a turkey like nobody else, and now I actually look forward to Thanksgiving. Calamari. It was always too tough and chewy, but it had just been overcooked. Moved to Spain and now it's one of my favorite things to eat. Chipirons or pulpo galego are great in Spain too. Baked potato. Growing up it was overcooked and one sliver of butter. Done properly with right amount of butter, some chives and other fixings, they are delicious. Done properly with right amount lots of butter, some chives and other fixings, they are delicious. Easily green beans. Growing up I hated most vegetables and only ate meat, bread and cheese pretty much. My girlfriend and I went plant-based a couple years ago and we live off veggies and plant-based proteins. She's a great cook and got me to enjoy green beans, asparagus, cauliflower, broccoli, etc. It's all about how it's cooked and seasoned. Steak. My dad liked his steak to be the texture of shoe leather. When I got older I never understood people who love steak until I had it cooked correctly at a restaurant. Growing up, I thought steak was just a delivery mechanism for steak sauce. Steak. My dad always made my steak growing up and it was just hair. Then a buddy of mine made it right and holy crap, changed my whole outlook on a good steak. Steak. Meatloaf. Cottage pie. Hated every one of these. Accidentally got a medium rare steak at a dinner and it was delicious. Meatloaf was always cooked dry and dense. Former Navy cook at my work did a meatloaf with barbecue glaze I couldn't get enough of. Same cook introduced me to cottage pie, not called shepherd's, and again wow, don't swear off foods your parents couldn't cook. Cottage pie is great. For anyone curious, it's shepherd's pie with beef instead of lamb. Brussels sprouts, spinach, pretty much any bitter green. Just boiling the ever-living crap out of them is gross. Fried, roasted, with some seasoning, etc. They're lovely. Steak. Always had overcooked. Mother cooks that way for father who likes all meat dry and well done. Had it cooked right, loved it, then learned to cook it myself, and bought quality local grass-fed organic beef, and love it more. Shrimp. Always hated it. Bought marinated shrimp skewers, cooked them on the pellet grill. Came out amazing. Asparagus and Brussels sprouts. When I started cooking for myself, I decided to try out a simple seasoning recipe on asparagus and it was amazing. Then I tried it on Brussels sprouts and they were killer top. Even just salt and pepper work on them if I put them on the stovetop in a pan till they're a bit soft on the outside. Motherfucking bell peppers. When I was a kid, my father put chopped raw bell peppers into scrambled eggs. Told me I was a wimp when I gagged when eating them. And honestly, ruined them for me. I'm 49 years old now. My wife made a bell pepper and chicken stir fry that's low calorie, which I dutifully said I'd try. It's amazing. I freaking love it, and, if I'm being honest, I'm pretty pissed off that I've missed out on them my whole life because nobody in my life knew how to cook them properly. Beets. Had someone saute them in a little butter and honey. I really think having them warm changed the game for me too. Totally agree. My mother only bought canned or pickled beets. The first time I bought whole beets, coated them in olive oil, wrapped them in foil and roasted them, it was eye-opening. Serving them warm on a salad with goat cheese crumbled and a vinaigrette is amazing. Tofu. People act like it's freaking awful, and that's because like 90% of the population here, Canada, have no clue how to prepare or cook it. And it's not just home cooks. I see far too many restaurants with tofu on the menu and they absolutely bastardize the ingredient. After learning how to make it properly, I eat it almost every day. Not my experience, but a friend's. His parents would always cook steak in vinegar. He thought he hated steak for most of his life. Salmon. Turned out I didn't hate salmon. I absolutely hate dill. Dill being a herb that salmon is often seasoned with. Haha dude, same here. Also balsamico. I thought I hate salad. Turns out I just really hate rucola and balsamico, which are in the majority of store-bought or even restaurant salads. Remove both and I really like salads. Spaghetti bolognese. My mom basically boiled the meat and it was awful. Got into cooking in the last few years and decided to give it a try and frick me, I changed my view. It's absolutely delicious. Garbanzo beans. Straight out of the can? No thank you. Cook them from a fry bean then toss them on a cast iron with some oil and seasoning, freaking yum. The liquid left over can be used as a replacement for eggs or blood in recipes. Lamb. So dry, so gamey, no sauce. I still haven't told my mom I like lamb, because I'm too scared it will inspire her to cook it when I visit. My sister keeps telling me she never liked bacon until she moved in with me, because our mom always had us burn it. I realized it was all pork products. Now I would do anything for a solid pork shoulder steak. Fried eggs. My mother cooked them in bacon grease until the edges were burnt and the middle dry. I was sitting at the counter in a restaurant and watched the cook making them in butter and not overcooking them. Tried them and loved them. Bacon fat wasn't the issue, it was the dry middle. Bacon fat eggs can be quite good. Rice. Like many others, I didn't like how my dad cooked it. Then I tried it in some other forms and liked it way better. Steak. My whole life my dad would never marinate them. Bought the cheapest bulk steaks from Costco and always cooked them well done. My mom, siblings, stepdad and I move into our new home, and to celebrate my stepdad buys T-bones, cooks them medium well and actually seasons them. Now they are my favorite food. Rice. Mum always overcooked it so it'd lose its bite then dry out. First times I had Japanese food I realized how nice and fluffy good rice is. 2 words. Rice cooker. Miso soup. Had it once at a restaurant and couldn't stand the bland salty taste. Then, one day I went to another place that had it complimentary with my meal. I tasted it reluctantly because I usually try to eat whatever I order as a principle. I had that fist taste and it was amazing. It was better than the entire rest of the meal I had. I'll try it with other dishes, but that was worth every penny for sure. first place probably just made it too weak or didn't use dashi. I first started working in Japanese restaurants over a decade ago, and outside of metro areas, a lot of so-called Japanese places were started by people who knew little about Japanese food but wanted to capitalize on the emerging sushi trend. If anyone knows how to cook mushrooms so they don't feel like I'm eating dirt slugs, that would probably help my marriage. Place mushrooms in the butter in a large skillet. Fry the mushrooms on medium-high heat for 10-15 minutes until they have reduced in size and are soft. Add in chopped garlic and fry for another 2-3 minutes until it has browned. Mix in some teriyaki sauce and stir. Add more to taste if desired. Sprinkle with parsley for garnish if desired and serve hot. Broccoli. Hated as a kid. When I moved out on my own, I thought I should try and like it, as it is good for you. So searched for recipes online. I found the perfect broccoli recipe. Turns out, boiling and steaming aren't the only way to cook it. Roasting. This is the way. Complete game changer. Rice. Didn't like it as a kid. When I started cooking it on my own, that's when I realized it wasn't supposed to be crunchy. Chicken breasts. My mom was so afraid of giving everyone salmonella that she would always cook them until they were white on the inside while in the pan. Combined with the fact that she went for boneless, skinless chicken breasts, they tended to be pretty tough. Pretty much everything? I always thought I was picky growing up, but it turns out my parents just aren't the best cooks, haha. Once I started cooking for myself in college, I realized I liked things like ham, dark meat chicken, shrimp, scalloped pork loin, breakfast sausage, fresh veggies, etc. etc. The only thing I didn't change my mind on was steak. I've had it from multiple households and from fancy restaurants, and the only way I'll eat it is medium well, which, as anyone who likes steak will tell you, is not real steak at that point. Try a ribeye steak. It has a lot of fat marbled through the meat, so even at medium well it will still be tender and flavorful. Asparagus. When I was a kid, my mom would buy asparagus in a can. It looked like mushy baby vomit and tasted awful. I was forced to eat food as a child, so I hated asparagus for years. Now I eat it all the time. Just moved from vegetarian to pescatarian after discovering tuna isn't just that stinky canned crap, but you can eat a tuna steak that tastes very similar to a real steak, not fishy at all. Saying this as a long-time fish hater. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.